The story. A chained dog was abandoned on the highway. What a little boy did changed everything. Scene 1. A stormy drive home. The rain fell in relentless sheets, hammering against the windshield as Emily gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles pale with tension. The wipers thrashed side to side in frantic rhythm, barely keeping up with the deluge. Headlights blurred in the watery haze, making the road ahead ghost-like and uncertain. From the back seat came a small, tired voice. "Mommy, I'm hungry." Emily glanced in the rearview mirror. Her 5-year-old son, Liam, sat curled up with his dinosaur backpack, his round cheeks illuminated by passing headlights. Despite the long day and the late hour, his wide eyes still held that innocent curiosity she loved so much. "We'll be home soon, sweetheart," she said gently. "Remember the cookies Grandpa Tom gave us? They're in your bag." Liam nodded and fumbled with the zipper, retrieving a crumbled treat shaped like a train. Emily allowed herself a weary smile. Single motherhood was exhausting, but moments like these made it all worth it. Her thoughts wandered to earlier that day, spent at her father's small country home. Grandpa Tom, a retired trucker with a heart full of stories, had held Liam captivated with tales of dusty highways and unexpected kindness. "Remember what Grandpa said today?" Emily asked. Liam straightened up, his voice full of conviction. "If someone's in trouble, you help them, no matter what." Emily nodded, her heart swelling. She didn't know then how soon those words would be tested. Scene 2. The cry in the rain. Just as Liam bit into his cookie, he suddenly froze. "Mummy," he whispered, eyes wide. "I hear something." Emily's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "It's just the rain, honey. It's loud tonight." But Liam shook his head, his voice oddly certain for someone so young. "No, Mummy. Something's crying." Emily glanced at the rearview mirror again. His small face was pressed against the window, fogging the glass as he peered into the storm. "Please stop the car," he said softly, then louder, with desperation. "Mummy, please! Someone needs help!" There was something in his tone, a raw urgency Emily had never heard before. She scanned the roadside through the downpour and spotted the glowing lights of a gas station up ahead. "Okay, baby, I'll pull in there." Before she could fully park, Liam had unbuckled his seatbelt and flung open the door. "Liam!" Emily shouted, scrambling after him into the cold rain. Her shoes splashed against the wet pavement as she chased his small figure toward the highway. Then she saw it. In the middle of the divider, between lanes of speeding traffic, stood a dog, soaked, trembling, chained tightly to a rusted metal post. Its fur clung to its thin frame, matted with mud and something darker. Blood. Liam was already there, kneeling beside the German shepherd, reaching out with tiny hands, unsure where to touch. "Sweetie, we have to go. It's not safe here," Emily said, breathless. But Liam looked up, eyes glistening. "She says she's sorry, Mummy. She thinks she was a bad dog." Emily stared in disbelief at her son and at the suffering creature pressing its face into his hand. How could he possibly know what the dog was feeling? The answer didn't matter. What mattered was this: they couldn't leave her there. Not now. Not ever. Scene 3. A stranger in the rain. Emily's mind raced as she knelt beside her son and the wounded dog, her heart thundering in her chest. The rain poured harder, soaking them through. Cars sped by, oblivious to the scene unfolding on the median. Horns blared, tires hissed across wet asphalt. The chain around the dog's neck was thick, industrial, cruel, and bolted to the concrete divider with a rusted padlock. There was no way to remove it by hand. The dog's breathing was labored, each wheeze a cry of pain, her paws raw and bleeding. "Who would do this?" Emily murmured, her voice trembling. Suddenly, a blinding pair of headlights skidded to a halt. A large truck swerved violently, missing them by inches. Screeching brakes, shouting, chaos. Then through the storm a figure emerged. A man in a motorcycle jacket soaked to the bone, his helmet still on. Without a word, he raised a hand to the truck driver, who cursed and sped away. The man turned to Emily. You all right? His voice was gravelly, weathered, kind. She nodded, clutching Liam close. The dog, she's chained. We can't get her loose. Without responding, the man jogged back to his motorcycle parked by the gas station. Moments later, he returned, carrying a pair of heavy-duty bolt cutters. Stand back, he said. Emily hesitated, unsure. But Liam stepped forward, placing a hand gently on the German shepherd's head. It's okay, he whispered. He's going to help you. To Emily's astonishment, the dog stilled, calming at her son's touch. The stranger knelt, positioning the cutters. With a sharp, metallic snap, the chain broke. The dog collapsed onto the wet concrete, too weak to move, but finally free. We need to get her somewhere safe, the man said, lifting the limp body into his arms with surprising gentleness. My car's right there, Emily pointed. Come with us. As they hurried toward the shelter of the vehicle, Emily asked, What's your name? The man gave a small, grim smile. Jack, he said. I used to be a vet. And just like that, 3 strangers, Emily, Liam, and Jack, became bound together by compassion, standing between a broken animal and the darkness that tried to consume her. Scene 4. The warning at the gas station. The storm continued to rage as Emily guided her car toward the gas station. Jack sat in the back seat, cradling the unconscious German shepherd in his arms. Liam leaned over the seat, watching her anxiously. She's breathing, Jack said, his voice low, but barely. She's lost a lot of blood. Emily pulled under the flickering gas station awning, engine idling, windshield wipers squeaking in time with her racing thoughts. She turned to check on Liam and Maya. Yes, that's what Liam had called her, Maya, a name spoken with uncanny certainty. As Emily stepped out to stretch her legs, a man emerged from the small gas station booth, an older attendant with a weathered face and tired eyes. He walked toward her, eyes narrowing when he spotted the dog in Jack's lap. Everything all right here? He asked gruffly. We found her on the highway, Emily explained. She was chained to the divider. Someone left her there. The man's expression changed, subtly but unmistakably. What had been mild suspicion turned to something colder. Fear. You shouldn't have done that, he muttered. Emily blinked. Excuse me. The man leaned closer, his voice now hushed, cautious. Dogs don't end up like that by accident. What are you saying? She asked, a chill crawling up her spine despite the heat in the car. But the man only shook his head, backing away. Just be careful, he said. Be real careful. Then he retreated into the booth, pulling the blinds down behind him. Emily stood there in stunned silence as the rain eased to a light drizzle. Behind her, Liam's voice rose gently. Someone put her there on purpose, he said, his tone solemn. They didn't want her to be found. Emily turned slowly to face her son, whose innocent eyes now seemed far too knowing for his age. How do you know that, Liam? I just do, he said softly. Maya told me. And somehow Emily didn't doubt him, not for a second. Scene 5. A quiet shelter, a lingering fear. By the time Emily pulled into her driveway, the storm had finally passed. The world outside was quiet now, eerily so. The headlights briefly illuminated her modest front yard before she turned off the engine. Inside the car, Liam had curled up beside Maya, one small hand resting gently on her neck, right where the cruel chain had been. Jack followed behind them on his motorcycle. As he parked and walked up to the car, Emily noticed how different he looked here, in the soft light of her neighborhood. Less like a stranger, more like someone carrying the weight of something he couldn't put down. I'll carry her in, he offered. Emily gently woke Liam. Sweetheart, we're home. Let's get Maya inside where it's warm. She's still sleeping, Liam whispered, worry in his voice. She's just tired, Emily reassured him. She's been through a lot. Inside, they quickly transformed the living room into a makeshift veterinary clinic. Emily laid out old towels, warmed water, and found the first aid kit tucked away in a drawer. Jack knelt by Maya, his hands practiced and steady as he cleaned wounds and bandaged deep gashes. I thought you said you weren't a vet anymore, Emily said softly. I'm not, Jack replied without looking up. Not officially, but some things you don't forget. even when you want to. Liam sat close to Maya the entire time, watching her face with quiet intensity. "She's dreaming," he announced suddenly. "What's she dreaming about, buddy?" Jack asked. "She's running, but she can't run fast enough," Liam answered. "Her legs are tied together." Emily shivered. Later, after Maya had been treated and was resting, Emily tucked Liam into the couch and offered to bring a blanket for Maya. Jack gently pulled her aside in the hallway. "There's something you should know," he said in a low voice. "The chain, it wasn't normal. It was industrial, what they use on machines, not animals." Emily felt her stomach drop. "That wasn't abandonment," Jack continued out. "That was execution." A sudden growl from the living room made them both freeze. Maya was no longer resting. She was standing, stiff, eyes locked on the front window. Liam sat up on the couch, pale and alert. "Maya is scared," he whispered. "Someone's outside." Emily's heart pounded. She crept toward the window and carefully pulled the curtain back. Across the street, beneath the shadows of the old oak tree, stood a dark figure, watching their house. Scene 6, The Man in Black. The next morning dawned deceptively bright, the sun streaming through Emily's kitchen windows as if the terrors of the night had been nothing but shadows. Maya lay curled on a towel by the couch, her body still, but her eyes wide open and alert. Liam sat beside her, quietly feeding her small pieces of pancake. "We should take her to a real vet," Emily said, rinsing dishes with tired hands. "Jack did what he could, but she needs professional care. Maybe X-rays." "She says Jack is coming," Liam replied matter-of-factly. Emily turned, startled. "How do you know that?" Before he could answer, the doorbell rang. Maya instantly tensed, her ears perked, a growl building in her throat. Liam placed a calming hand on her head. "It's okay. It's just Jack." And sure enough, when Emily peeked through the peephole, Jack stood on the porch holding a bag of medical supplies. But no sooner had he entered and started checking Maya's bandages than another knock came, loud, insistent. This time it wasn't Jack. 2 uniformed officers stood outside. "Ma'am, we've received a report about a stolen dog," one of them said. "A German shepherd, valuable animal. The owner filed a claim last night." Emily's stomach dropped. "There must be a mistake," she said. "We found her, chained in the middle of a highway." Before the officers could respond, a black SUV pulled up. A tall, sharply dressed man stepped out. Immaculate suit, black leather gloves, cold eyes. "I believe you have my dog," he said, smiling tightly. "Her name is Duchess." Maya's growl deepened to a snarl, her body trembling, not with fear but rage. Jack stepped forward, his voice firm. "That dog has multiple injuries. She's a victim of long-term abuse. As a veterinarian, I'm reporting this as a case of animal cruelty." The man's smile didn't falter, but Emily could see it now. The mask, the danger, the warning in his voice as he met her eyes. "This isn't over." Scene 7, Beneath the Surface. The officers left with promises to look into it, but the tension lingered like smoke in the air. Maya wouldn't leave Liam's side, her gaze fixed on the door long after the well-dressed man, Victor Crane, had driven off. That night, Jack sat in Emily's kitchen, a laptop open before him, the screen glowing with scattered news clippings and property records. Tom, Emily's father, had returned after Liam called him. Together, the 3 adults tried to make sense of what they'd stumbled into. "His name is Victor Crane," Jack said grimly. "Wealthy, connected, owns a private security firm, a few development companies, and according to rumors, an underground dogfighting ring." Emily felt her stomach churn. "But why come here? Why fight so hard to get Maya back?" Tom leaned against the counter, arms folded. "Because she knows something, or she's proof of something." Liam sat nearby, quietly drawing pictures with his crayons. Without looking up, he said softly, "Maya had babies." Emily turned to him, startled. "Babies?" Liam nodded. "The bad man took them away. She's crying for them." Jack's eyes widened. He gently examined Maya again, his hands moving carefully along her abdomen. Then he froze. "He's right," he whispered. "She's recently given birth, maybe just a few weeks ago." A heavy silence settled over the room. Then Liam's voice came again, distant, focused. "I see them. They're in cages, a barn, lots of dogs, barking." He paused, then added, "There's a sign, it's broken, with a horse." Jack's face turned pale. "The old racetrack," he said. "Outskirts of town. It's been shut down for years." Tom straightened. Isolated. Perfect place to hide something. Emily felt the weight of it all pressing down on her chest. They weren't just fighting for Maya anymore. They were chasing ghosts, following Liam's visions, and walking straight into the shadows of something far darker than a lost dog. Scene 8. Into the ruins. The next morning, the sun rose on a day that felt wrong in its brightness. Emily called in sick to work. Jack packed a bag, flashlight, water, camera, and basic tools. Tom stayed behind with Liam, who stood on the porch watching them, Maya by his side. "She knows where to go," Liam said softly. "She remembers." Maya climbed into the back seat without hesitation. She was still limping, but her eyes were clear, focused, determined. The old racetrack was nearly an hour's drive out of town, swallowed by overgrown brush and forgotten history. Cracked pavement, graffiti-covered walls. But it wasn't the main building that drew Maya. As soon as they arrived, she pulled toward a separate barn off to the side, dilapidated, hidden behind trees. "She's leading us," Jack whispered. They followed quietly, staying in the shadows. Maya began whining, her pace quickening as they neared the structure. Then the barking began. Faint at first, then louder, higher, dozens of dogs. Emily and Jack exchanged a look. "This place isn't abandoned," she said. They found a gap in the siding just large enough for Maya. She slipped inside without a sound. "Maya, wait!" Jack started, but it was too late. Now they had no choice. Finding a weak point in the wood near a padlocked door, Jack braced himself. "Stand back." With a powerful kick, the rotted wood splintered. Inside, the smell hit them first. Urine, blood, fear. Cages lined the walls, dogs of all breeds, all sizes, some snarling, some too weak to move. And at the far end, Maya stood pressed against a cage. Inside, 5 small puppies huddled together. Tears welled in Emily's eyes. "She found them," she whispered, "her babies." But there was no time to celebrate. Outside, they heard it. The sound of a vehicle, doors slamming, voices approaching. Someone was coming. Scene 9. The raid. Emily and Jack froze as the sound of approaching voices grew louder. Maya stood protectively in front of the cage housing her puppies, her body tense and ready. "We have to hide," Jack whispered urgently. Scanning the dimly lit barn, Emily spotted a stack of hay bales in the corner. "There," she pointed. They hurried behind the hay, crouching low. Maya hesitated, torn between staying with her puppies and following Emily's lead. With a soft command from Liam echoing in her mind, she reluctantly joined them. The barn door creaked open, and heavy footsteps echoed on the concrete floor. "Check the cages," a gruff voice ordered. "Make sure they're ready for tonight's fights." Peering through a gap in the hay, Emily saw 2 men dressed in dark clothing, their faces obscured by shadows. One carried a clipboard, the other a flashlight, its beam cutting through the gloom. Jack's hand tightened around his phone. He had managed to send a quick text to Tom before they hid, sharing their location and the situation. Now they could only hope help would arrive in time. As the men moved deeper into the barn, inspecting the caged dogs, Maya let out a low growl. Emily placed a calming hand on her back, willing her to stay quiet. Suddenly, the distant wail of sirens pierced the air. The men exchanged panicked glances. "Who called the cops?" one hissed. "Doesn't matter. We need to get out of here," the other snapped, already heading for the door. Before they could escape, the barn was flooded with flashing red and blue lights. Officers poured in, weapons drawn. "Freeze! Hands where we can see them!" a commanding voice barked. The men complied, dropping to their knees as handcuffs were swiftly applied. Emily, Jack, and Maya emerged from their hiding spot as an officer approached. "Are you two all right?" he asked, concern in his eyes. "We're fine," Emily replied, her voice shaking. "But these dogs, they need help." The officer nodded. "We'll take care of them, and we'll make sure these men face justice." As the sun began to rise, casting a warm glow over the scene, Emily felt a sense of relief wash over her. They had done it. Maya's family was safe. And Victor Crane's cruel operation had been brought to an end. Scene 10. The Drive and the Drive. The morning after the raid, the house was quiet, too quiet. Liam played with Maya and her 5 puppies in the living room, their laughter and barks filling the air. But in the kitchen, a storm was brewing. Jack had returned from meeting a contact in IT security. He placed a small flash drive on the table, its presence heavier than it looked. "Crane gave this to me," he said, "last night, before he turned himself in." Emily stared at the drive. "Why would he do that?" "Because he was scared," Jack said simply. "Scared of the people behind him," he said. The dogs were just the beginning. They plugged the drive into Emily's laptop. The screen came to life. Folders, files, videos, and documents. Jack opened the first. Research logs, genetic mapping, neurological enhancements, cognitive training. And there was Maya, healthy, younger, in a lab-like setting, solving puzzles, responding to symbols, performing tasks far beyond a typical dog. Emily leaned in, stunned. "This is real!" But as Jack dug deeper, the videos became darker. Stress tests, isolation, electric shock experiments, behavioral manipulation, pain response studies. "They tortured her," Emily whispered, tears forming, "in the name of science." Jack clicked on a folder labeled Project Surrogate. Inside, documents outlining the use of genetically enhanced dogs as test subjects for experimental modifications intended not for animals, but for humans. "Human application," Jack muttered. They were using dogs as biological proxies to test what they couldn't legally try on people. Emily's hands shook. They used her, bred her, hurt her, and then threw her away when she wasn't useful. A final folder named Funders revealed lists of names, corporations, military contractors, even shell entities tied to government agencies. "This is bigger than Crane," Jack said. This is organized, protected." And just then Tom's phone buzzed. He read the alert aloud, his voice heavy. "Victor Crane, found dead in his cell, apparent suicide." No one spoke. But in that silence they all knew this was far from over. Scene 11. Shadows at the window. The flash drive had revealed more than Emily ever wanted to know. But Crane's death confirmed what she feared most. There were others, powerful, dangerous people, who didn't want the truth exposed, people willing to kill to keep it hidden. That night, the weight of it all pressed down on her like a stone. Jack sat in the living room, cleaning medical tools. Tom sipped coffee in the kitchen, his eyes scanning the darkened yard every few minutes. Emily stood at the window watching the quiet street. Too quiet. Liam and the puppies had finally drifted to sleep, Maya curled protectively around them like a sentinel. But Maya's ears twitched at every sound, her eyes never fully closing. "She knows something's wrong," Emily said quietly. "She's not the only one," Jack replied. Suddenly, Maya's head shot up. A low growl rumbled in her chest. Her gaze locked onto the window. Emily followed her eyes. A car had appeared at the end of the street, moving slowly, its headlights off. It stopped across from their house. Then a figure stepped out. Even in the dark, Emily recognized the glint of black leather gloves. "Crane," she whispered, her throat tight. "No," Jack said, standing up. "Crane is dead." The man didn't approach. He stood at the edge of the yard, watching, measuring, sending a message. Emily moved to shield Liam, her breath shallow. Jack stepped forward, placing himself between the man and the house. "You need to leave," he shouted. No response, just that silent, chilling stare. Then, as suddenly as he came, the man returned to the car and drove off, disappearing into the night. Emily locked every door, every window, her hands trembling. They weren't safe anymore. They had never been, and now someone else knew exactly where they lived. Scene 12, Midnight Revelations. The house was cloaked in silence, save for the soft breathing of sleeping puppies and the occasional creak of the floorboards. Emily couldn't sleep. Neither could Jack. They sat at the kitchen table, the glow of the laptop casting long shadows on their tired faces. The flash drive Crane had given them still sat, plugged in. an open doorway to secrets darker than either had imagined. "There's one last folder," Jack said quietly. "It's encrypted. Took my friend a while to crack it." He opened it, revealing a single document. Subject Interaction Protocol, Tier 3 candidates. Emily leaned in. The first few lines chilled her. Test Group, Enhanced Canine Cognition, Phase 4. Objective, establish emotional resonant bond between engineered subjects and responsive human minors. Ideal age, 4 to 7 years. Observation, subject A7, Maya, exhibited exceptional synchronicity with child L11. Emily's breath caught. Child L11. Jack scrolled further. There was a blurry photograph, Maya, and beside her, unmistakable despite the grainy image, was Liam.
"No," Emily whispered, that's not possible. But it was...
Crane hadn't found them by accident. "He's been watching us longer than we thought," Jack murmured, "maybe even before Maya escaped." Emily's hands trembled. "You think Liam was part of their experiment?" Jack shook his head. "Not directly, but his connection with Maya, it's what they were trying to replicate. Maya wasn't just bred to fight. She was designed to bond, to understand, to link minds," Emily said numbly. "And Liam is proof it worked." Silence stretched between them as the truth settled in. Crane hadn't been trying to reclaim a lost asset. He had been trying to silence the evidence. "This means they'll come back," Emily said. "Not just for Maya." Jack looked toward the living room where Liam lay asleep with Maya nestled beside him. "They'll come for him too." Emily rose, her voice calm, resolute. "Then we leave. Tonight." Scene 13. The warning. Emily moved through the house like a ghost, gathering essentials. Documents, a few clothes, Liam's favorite blanket. Jack was already packing medical supplies and food. In the living room, Tom checked over a road map, circling back roads and forest routes. They all moved quickly, silently, like people who knew time was no longer on their side. Liam hadn't woken since the late-night discovery. He was curled beside Maya, one hand resting protectively on her neck. But then, just as Emily zipped up her backpack, Liam stirred. His eyes opened wide, not with grogginess, but with sudden clarity. "They're here." Emily froze. "What did you say, sweetheart?" Liam sat up slowly, his face pale. "Maya hears them, in the woods, men, watching, whispering." Jack bolted toward the window, careful not to disturb the curtains. He didn't see anything, but the hairs on his neck were standing up. "We don't have time," Emily said. Tom nodded. "We take the forest road, through the service trail behind the house. I'll stay behind, create a diversion."
"No," Emily said firmly. We all go together."
But Tom placed a hand on her shoulder. "I've done this before, Emmy. I know how to disappear. You take Liam, take Maya. I'll meet you at the safe house in 2 days." Emily's throat tightened, but she nodded. There was no time to argue. Maya stood now, alert and ready, as if she understood everything. "I disabled the GPS in your phones," Jack said, "and I found the tracker under Maya's left shoulder blade. We'll have to remove it. Fast." Liam was already by Maya's side, whispering to her, "It'll be okay. We'll get away." The tension in the house thickened as Jack worked to remove the tracker with a sterilized knife. Maya didn't flinch. She only stared into Liam's eyes, steady and trusting. Once the chip was out, Jack crushed it under his boot. "We move now," he said. And just like that, they slipped out into the cold, dark woods, carrying a child, 5 puppies, a wounded mother dog, and the truth that could tear everything apart. Scene 14. Through the trees. The forest swallowed them whole. Jack led the way, flashlight covered with a cloth to dim the beam. Emily followed close behind with Liam in her arms, and Maya padding silently at her side. The puppies were tucked safely into a canvas-lined crate strapped to Jack's back, every soft whimper from them like thunder in the quiet night. Behind them, Tom's footsteps vanished into the undergrowth as he slipped in another direction, leaving false trails and boot prints. The air was thick with fog and tension. The farther they walked, the more Emily felt the weight of what they were carrying, not just dogs and secrets, but something heavier, hope, fragile, precious hope. Suddenly, Maya froze. Jack halted instantly, raising a hand.
What is it? Emily whispered.
But Maya didn't growl. She didn't bark. She simply turned her head slowly toward the right, her ears twitching.
Then they all heard it. Footsteps.
Crunching leaves. And voices. Men's voices, low, purposeful. They're tracking us, Jack murmured. We need to move, Emily said, her voice barely holding steady. But before they could take another step, Maya let out a sharp whimper and collapsed. Jack dropped to his knees. She's bleeding. Badly. The chip must have been deeper than I thought. It reopened.
I can carry her, Emily offered, panic rising.
No, Liam said firmly. He knelt beside Maya, placing both hands on her muzzle. She says we're almost there, he whispered. Jack looked up, startled. There's a fire access road about a mile ahead. If we reach it, we can call in help. But the voices behind them were getting louder, closer. Suddenly flashlights, scanning the woods just behind the ridge.
Then a bark.
Not Maya. Another dog. They brought dogs. Emily's heart slammed into her ribs. We don't run, Liam said, standing slowly. We protect Maya now. And in that moment, Maya stood too, bloodied, trembling, but defiant. She would not be taken again. Not this time. Scene 15. A shelter in the pines. The fire road appeared like a ghost through the trees, overgrown but real. A sliver of gravel and mud that cut through the forest, leading to what once had been a ranger outpost. Now it was nothing more than a run-down cabin tucked beneath towering pines. But it was shelter. Safe, for now. Emily stumbled through the door with Liam in her arms, her chest heaving. Jack followed, setting the crate of puppies down gently. Maya, though still limping, walked in on her own. She collapsed near the hearth, her breathing shallow but her eyes alert. The cabin smelled of pine sap and dust. Long abandoned but dry, Jack immediately began a makeshift triage with gauze and antibiotics. Emily helped him, while Liam sat beside Maya, whispering softly to her. She says this place is good, he murmured. It smells like people who were kind. They lit a fire, using broken branches and old matches left behind in a rusted tin. For a few minutes the glow returned to the room. The tension softened, but didn't vanish. We can't stay here long, Jack said quietly. They'll be sweeping the forest by morning.
But where can we go? Emily asked, her voice breaking. They know who we are now, what Maya is, what Liam might be.
There was silence. Then Jack pulled out a folded paper, a map, and placed a finger on a small mark deep in the mountains. A friend of mine runs an off-grid sanctuary. No roads, no signal, no questions. If we get there, they can disappear. Disappear, Emily echoed. It's the only way to keep Maya and the pups safe. And Liam too, if he really is part of this. Emily looked at her son, innocent, exhausted, unknowing of how extraordinary he truly was. Then she looked at Maya, who, despite her pain, nudged Liam's hand gently.
I'll go, Emily whispered. We all will.
Because some truths were too dangerous for the world. But the bond between a boy and a dog, that was sacred, and worth protecting, no matter the cost. Scene 16, a new beginning. 6 months later. Snow blanketed the clearing like a soft, forgiving silence. Tall pines swayed gently in the mountain wind, and the sound of distant birdsong echoed through the valley. The sanctuary was simple. Solar-powered cabins, vegetable gardens, a fenced pasture, and a small wooden barn that had become home to 5 growing German shepherd pups, now strong, playful, and fiercely loyal to the boy who had saved them. Liam. He ran through the field with laughter in his voice, Maya close behind him, her limp now barely noticeable. She moved like a guardian, never too far, always watching. Emily stood on the porch of their cabin, a cup of warm tea in her hands, her eyes filled with quiet gratitude. Life here was not easy, but it was honest, real, and above all, safe. Jack approached, a backpack slung over his shoulder. He had stayed, at least for now. Something about this place and this family kept him from walking away. You get the message from Tom? He asked. Emily nodded. He's okay, still watching our old place. Said no one's come around in months. Jack handed her a weathered envelope. This came today, no return address. Inside, a photo of a government building, a man's face circled in red, and a note typed, "You were right. Crane was only a pawn. If you want the truth, follow the trail." Emily stared at the photo, then looked out at Liam, now teaching one of the pups to sit, with Maya proudly watching on. She folded the note and placed it in her pocket. Not yet. For now they would live, heal, love. Because what they had, what they fought for, was more than just survival. It was connection. The kind that couldn't be bred in a lab or erased by fear. The kind that began the moment a broken dog looked into a little boy's eyes and chose to trust again. The end.